Hello, I'm Helene Oberman, Managing Director of Interior Design Magazine, and I'd like to welcome you to Product Live. This is our series that delves into the products and trends grabbing the industry and in real time looking at the minds behind the design. Driven by imagination, intention, and purpose, Patcraft creates high-performance flooring for every market sector, from workplace to healthcare, education, and beyond. The company designs with a focus on the human experience, considering the impact of our physical space and its role in creating connections, sparking collaboration, evoking a sense of comfort, and enhancing our well-being. For Patcraft, the mission is to inspire, create, and transform the everyday. With me today are Kelly Stewart, resilient designer, and Amanda Hopkins, resilient and carpet designer. Thank you guys so much for being here. Welcome.
Thank you.
In our last Product Live with Patcraft, we took a look at soft surfacing and its uses and benefits within the built environment, highlighting how flooring can play an important role in creating connected spaces. Today, we're going to further explore these ideas and focus on the importance of hard surface flooring, especially given its increase in various market sectors. So, Kelly and Amanda, we're going to be concentrating on your upcoming product introduction, Linocut, which is a resilient flooring collection designed with a lot of visual interest. I'd love to begin with the inspiration behind the design, especially the abstract patterning, which I understand began with your original artwork.
Absolutely. So Linocut, it's our new LVT that we'll be launching in the next couple of months, and it's made here in the US. And it's a 9 by 36 inch LVT that's 5 millimeters thick, which is so important because it allows for a seamless transition to carpet. And the color line consists of 13 colors, 7 of which are neutrals and 6 are brights. And we did a lot of color research over the past year to really help inform our color line. For example, we had some feedback on a recent collection where we didn't include a red and people would have liked to see a red. So we added a red in this collection. Now the pattern, it has a really cool story. It was inspired by a series of block prints, which we stamped with linoleum carved blocks. And we played around with layering the different prints, and we played around with the scale and the orientation and the directionality of the pattern, and ultimately landed on the final visual. So it's multi-directional and it has a lot of depth, and this helps hide things like dirt and scratching and scuffing, which you hate to talk about, but that's a huge part of the design process, is trying to hide things like that. It's also really seamless on the floor due to that multi-directional pattern. Something that I love about this collection is that when we did these block prints, sometimes the ink didn't fully adhere to the paper, leaving behind the sort of look to it. It really helps juxtapose the kind of the graphic nature and geometry of the pattern, leaving a lot of soft texture and depth behind.
So I'm just curious, because obviously, these block prints are really great. Do you use a similar process in terms of original artwork for all of the resilient flooring collections that you guys are designing?
It depends. So a lot of times we're designing woods and stones, and a lot of times those images are sourced and scanned from natural materials like the wood itself. But for our abstract patterns, we work in a few different ways. A lot of times we're developing our own original artwork, like this pattern for Linocut. So I do a lot of personal work with painting and printmaking, just trying to develop textures. But then depending on the end result that we're going for, sometimes we work purely digitally, and that leaves a more graphic look. So no two collections are the same, and every process is a little bit different.
No, I definitely love that the patterning, you kind of could go in either direction. It can either be organic in nature, like you said, if it was like a woodcut, versus something obviously much more graphic and abstract like Linocut. Going back to Linocut though, in the design process, so obviously, you start with these block prints that you guys are producing, but then it's obviously still sort of digitally entered, and then you're going in and sort of manipulating all the different lines and the patternings just so they're perfect, correct?
Yes, it's definitely a mix of working with our hands and then working digitally. And I think that gives us the best of both worlds.
Kelly, I'm just curious. So I know you touched on it, but really about the fact that there's really some great benefits of using hard surfacing flooring on the sort of within the built environment. I know there's like, you can really be great about, you know, hiding all those little moments and nicks and tucks and scratches and buffs, but what else in terms of benefits can you have from resilient flooring?
So for hard surface, and we see hard surface being used in more places than ever now. Cleanability and durability are a huge part of it. Just the ease of maintenance, the ease of installation and cleaning. We have some products that are waterproof from the top down, which really help with moisture getting in there, preventing moisture, and just really easy to clean. Sometimes people have concerns with carpet and cleanability, so that's a huge benefit of hard surface. And then also with hard surface, if you're designing a heterogeneous product, which is made of layers, like a core, a printed image layer, and a wear layer, and top coat on top, the design possibilities are endless. So you can have a wide range of products within a hard surface line.
And then something else, Kelly, you kind of touched on is like, obviously there's 13 colorways to this new collection, and it really strikes a really great balance between the neutrals and certainly some much bolder colors. But what is your process for actually developing your color palette for this collection and for your other ones?
So we look a lot at where the product is going to be used, and also we don't want to limit a collection to being usable only in one area. So that's why we like to pull in brights and neutrals. The brights might be more suitable for places like education or some corporate areas, whereas the neutrals would be perfectly appropriate in healthcare, where you need something softer on the eyes. And the neutrals are really universal, can be used in the workplace and retail, education. So we try to have a wide range, and then also we look at color trends, but we also focus on what's going to sell the most. So we do look at a lot of numbers too, and we also get a lot of feedback from designers out there. I know Amanda went on a field travel all across the country last year to talk about color with one of her collections. So we pull in a lot of designer feedback as well.
So I know for Patcraft, it's really important to seek out that insight from the market when developing your collections. And I know you would normally do it like Amanda goes on a listening tour and does all these field visits, but obviously given the current state of the world, that's a challenge. But you guys have developed what you're calling the virtual feedback process. Can you tell me a little bit more about it?
Absolutely. So I'm actually working on a sheet good right now that'll be pretty much focused towards healthcare. And I've got a handful of patterns that I need some feedback on. And normally I would, fly around the country and get feedback on those in person. But unfortunately, due to today's circumstances, it will all be virtual, which has its positive side to it as well, because I can reach a lot more people in a shorter amount of time and save a lot of money doing so, not paying for travel and everything. So something we're doing is sending out printouts ahead of time so that the designers can have them in front of them as we talk about them on our call. So we'll be gathering a lot of feedback that way in the near future.
And are you getting a good response so far?
We haven't, we're starting next week. So we will find out very soon how those go.
Got it. So I know for Lino Cut, it can be used for wayfinding and definition of space, which we obviously know is really important right now as we begin these discussions about the return to work and what that will ultimately look like. So can you guys go into more detail about what we can do to define space, especially with flooring during this time period?
Absolutely. I would say at Patcraft, we always have been cognizant about how we use flooring to define space for wayfinding and directionality. And I think that we're just trying to help people to see it in a more natural and intuitive way. And it doesn't really have to be such a literal interpretation. So I think that we can use flooring to support these new behaviors and just help people feel more comfortable as they come back to the workplace. So I think that you can quickly and easily update your existing space to show that 6-foot spacing by selectively replacing tiles within a layout. So maybe it's as simple as using the same pattern in a contrasting color and you're swapping out tiles that way. Maybe you're using a totally different pattern within the same collection to kind of add in some interest and difference. And maybe you are even going as bold as getting a totally different collection with a really bright color that might be red or yellow or green. So I think it's definitely client dependent. And just will depend on whatever that project is and what makes sense for the space. And I think that by using these contrasting of colors and of patterns, you're able to keep that flow of traffic separate from work zones and emphasizing your walkways and your collaboration zones just simply by changing a color, style, or pattern.
And by doing that, you're also sort of supporting new behaviors that we're supposed to be having in the office. And like,
exactly,
you know, because obviously there's the idea of human connectivity and whether it's like, is this a space that we can share or not share, correct?
Right.
By the way you're defining it.
Yes, exactly. And I think we've also kind of been doing the same thing by being conscious of shapes that we use within a space too. So, which is kind of a really interesting study that we've worked through, and how shapes can evoke emotion and kind of also promote this sense of directionality and connectivity. So shapes such as a facet. So if you're using facet tiles together, they kind of form that shape of an arrow. So they kind of point you in the direction that you go in, while a circle kind of promotes this sense of togetherness and belonging. So maybe you use a circle in a space where it is okay to kind of gather together. So I think that's also kind of an interesting take on that as well.
So I'm just curious for both of you, obviously, from, you know, working at home these past few months, how have you been finding your own inspiration?
It's definitely been different. And I think that the way that we're working kind of allows us to feel more free in this sense of exploration and sense of inspiration. I've found myself going on so many walks these days just to kind of get out of the same space. And I personally am very inspired by nature and kind of understanding the changing environments around myself, which is kind of where I've been finding my inspiration. So kind of just going out in nature and coming back into my house and doing some paintings that kind of replicate those textures or patterns that I'm seeing outside.
And I was going to say the same thing. I've been going on a lot more walks, which is not something I would have done on a weekday typically, but now it's so easy either in the morning with my dog or on my lunch break to take a walk. And I even found myself noticing houses in my neighborhood that I had never seen before, even though I drive by them all the time. And then, I mean, I've really enjoyed working from home, but sometimes I still need a break from my office setup, which is one of our spare bedrooms. So maybe on a day that I'm working on paintings, I'll take over the kitchen island and just spread out my paints and paper and have a day that's purely for exploration. So that's helped me stay inspired.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if all your nature walks will mean that the next collection is going to be nature forward in terms of its patterning. But I'm also curious, because have you guys incorporated new methods into really your design process? You know, besides Kelly, maybe you changing your kitchen up and using that or your dining room for your painting room and your painting studio. I mean, what are other new processes that you may have sort of developed and put into place now that you're working more from home?
We work so collaboratively within our spaces. And so I think trying to find this balance of sharing inspiration and ideas with designers has also changed. And I feel like we hop on Zoom calls more than ever to share our screens, show what we're working on, show new ideas. And I think that that's kind of been our new normal of design processes and going through different projects and ideas and kind of vetting it out online and virtually rather than in person. So I think that that's also been really interesting as well.
And then I'm curious, besides the nature walks, just thinking about this idea, because we are spending so much time at home, if this residential feeling, which I know, Amanda, we have spoken about on the soft surfacing side, if that will also be reflected, sort of this idea of comfort that you find at home can also sort of move forward in the next resilient flooring collection.
Absolutely. I think with hard surface, it's such a great opportunity to bring in warmth and bring in those feelings of comfort, because you can really print any kind of image that you want for a hard surface product. So I think that we'll definitely be taking that into consideration moving forward.
Got it. Well, Kelly and Amanda, I want to thank you guys so much for really all of your insight and your time And for our audience out there, I want to say, please check out the Patcraft website to learn more about Lino Cut and their other both resilient and soft surfacing collections. Thank you.